who were part of that command and control system are at their stations and have been throughout this, and so it's very smooth and very effective. I'm thinking about all those people who were in that part of the Pentagon that was struck by the aircraft. We know there are a number of men and women who served there who aren't accounted for, and presumably there are casualties and fatalities there, but the command and control functions are totally intact.
But General Clark, what do you say to Americans, and this is the same version of the question I just put to Senator Nunn, who would say, we thought we lived in the safest country on earth, and now we find out that places that we thought were invulnerable, the Pentagon of all places, one of the most secure locations in Washington, much less in the country, the Twin Towers of the Trade Center, a building that had already come under terrorist attack and had been under increased security, to know that these kinds of places, and we've been told, at least I'm informed that Senator Orrin Hatch has said to some of my colleagues at CNN there was an indication that Camp David may have been a target of the jetliner that crashed in Pennsylvania. This is the sort of thing that makes people want to reevaluate everything.
Well, I've heard the same rumor about Camp David, but we know that for all of our unique power in the world today, the United States is also uniquely vulnerable. We've been targeted for years by a number of these groups, and many people have warned for some time that there's really no ultimate protection against terrorism, and particularly international terrorism. There's no telling how many of these efforts that are similar or perhaps lesser in scale have been broken up by the United States or by our allies, and yet this one has succeeded, and I know there'll be some hard questions asked. But Judy, one thing that comes through very clearly in this is that in an era where global communications are the way they are, and there's movement of people and ideas and communications, that it's not possible to have only one nation deal with the problem of international terrorism. Greater international cooperation and coordination is required, and certainly no state should be supporting and sponsoring the presence inside its borders or the activities out of its borders of international terrorists. And that's one very important message that comes from this terrible tragedy, and I'm sure our government will drive this home very strongly in all of the international fora. I was just on the phone with people in Europe, and as you probably know, NATO headquarters has responded by ordering the evacuation. Of course, by the North Atlantic Charter, an attack on one member of NATO is an attack on all of NATO. And how this will play itself out in coordination with our allies remains to be seen, but here's clearly an area where the United States desperately does need the support of all of our allies, and I'm sure we'll have that support as we deal with the consequences of this tragedy.
Evacuated this morning when all of this was taking place, when the threat on the Pentagon was taking place. Now they're just now letting people back in. We are, I believe, the first reporters to broadcast live from here, others just getting into the compound now. The security all day long. We were just across the street watching the dogs, the bomb-sniffing dogs out on the compound. Agents at one point patrolling across the street in Lafayette Park with automatic rifles. That an extraordinary scene. We occasionally have bomb scares here. There are occasionally other threats, security threats that cause high level of alerts. Nothing in my 4+ years on this beat, nothing at all like this today.
Okay, John King, we'll be back to you. Stand by. Meanwhile, let's go back to Bill Hemmer in Atlanta. Bill?
Well, thank you, and to our viewers who are just joining us possibly at this time, what has been a very already long and horrendous day in the U.S. We're going to quickly recap the developments of this day. It began with a series of coordinated terrorist attacks against the U.S. Then at the top of this hour, less than 60 minutes ago, explosions were seen in Kabul. That's the capital city in Afghanistan. However, reporters traveling with the president and the White House also tells us these explosions are not part of a U.S. strike against the country. Afghanistan's Taliban has been harboring fugitive terrorist Osama bin Laden. U.S. intelligence officials have told CNN there are good indications that persons linked to Osama bin Laden may be responsible for today's terrorist attacks in the U.S. However, that is far from confirmed at this point. Both towers of New York's World Trade Center and a section of the Pentagon have been destroyed. At this time, Nick Robertson by video phone joins us from, again, Kabul, the capital city of Afghanistan. Nick, what do you have for us at this point?
Well, Bill, we can confirm that the Northern Alliance, that's the alliance of fighters fighting the Taliban, who hold the last 5% of the country in the northeast of Afghanistan that the Taliban have yet to conquer, they have confirmed to us from their spokesman up there in the north of Afghanistan that they were responsible for the explosions here in Kabul this evening. They also say that they plan more such attacks. They don't say where and they don't say when. They say that they will brief us shortly on that, but they are claiming responsibility for the attacks we've seen here in Kabul this evening. It's not normal for them to attack Kabul in this way, but their leader, Ahmed Shah Massoud, a very key commander who holds together the alliance of fighters in the north of Afghanistan, he rose to fame during the Soviet occupation in the 1980s, where he was undefeated.
All right, clearly we have a breakup of our signal there from Nick Robertson in Kabul, Afghanistan. What you're seeing, though, as the video phone, late technology that allows us to see these nighttime pictures here. It's not nearly as clear as a regular television monitor would provide, but we can see the images of a quieter capital city of Kabul, and Nick Robertson's audio clearly has dropped off at this point. We hope to reestablish the signal again. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning in Afghanistan, but back in New York, it's just about 7 o'clock, and again, we're about 10 hours removed from what has been a day that will live for a long time in the memories of a lot of Americans who have watched the images throughout the day. Back
symbol of so much that is America. Here's ABC's James Walker.
As the upper floors of the Trade Center towers burned, inside, employees scrambled to escape.
For the 82nd floor, and I don't know what my peers are. I don't know. I hope to God they're okay. And so I can say, I don't know what. We saw a shadow. It looked like a plane. Next thing we know, it was boom, boom, and the floor started shaking. And then we saw debris fall down, and next thing we know, we had to get out of the building. We stuck on the stairs for a while. We finally got down to the lobby. Then we get to the lobby, it was this big explosion.
As soon as he got hit, I was thrown to a window. So I was very lucky to get out. There's a lot of people that didn't get out. There's a lot of people coming down the stairs, burnt up. It's bad.
On the street, New Yorkers looked up and watched in horror.
And then we saw the people jumping. We saw what we thought was debris, and we realized it was people jumping.
I started seeing people they started jumping out of the window, like the 96th floor. They just started, one at a time, from different parts of the building. I just started seeing the people just drop. And I must have counted like 30 or 40 people, you know.
Rescue workers raced to the scene, but then, some 90 minutes after the attack,
oh my God, there it goes! Get out
of here! Soot and rubble were everywhere, and with it, chaos.
What scared me the most was the panic, and people were running, and you just saw this great big cloud of dust just coming from the center of the building and mushrooming out towards the river. There was, people had no place to go. People were going to jump in the river, they were going to swim, they were jumping on a boat, they were breaking glass to get into nearby homes and restaurants.
There was, dust and whatnot everywhere, but it was...
The second building has just come down.
You okay, officer?
Firefighters and police officers found themselves momentarily helpless. Trained to save others, they suddenly had to save themselves.
It's a war. We've been attacked. It's like World War II. It's World War II. This is unbelievable.
Tonight, crews are standing by to start searching for the thousands of people feared missing in the debris. James Walker, ABC News, New York.
Time to do anything. Wasn't time to think, wasn't time to breathe. certainly there wasn't time to mourn. The only thing you could do is run, and if you could, help. For those inside the World Trade Center, it wasn't just hell on earth. For Bob Fox, it was hell 39 stories up.
It was unbelievable. I was on the 39th floor about 8:45 when a tremendous explosion hit.
Those lucky enough to get out walked out of one danger right into another. A moonscape of ash and debris, smoke and fire, leaking gas, and already the smell of death.
Debris, smoke, all the dust, everything, just couldn't see nothing. And I was praying to God then that, let me get by this now.
Ironworker Tony Cabrera rushed toward the carnage to try and help.
Then I seen the second plane hit. And I went into this lobby. And I went into the lobby. I was there with the fire department and everything, and just, it was starting to give away. This and that, pieces of people coming down, parts, and whatever.
Never seen anything like it.
Never.
Rescuers were at a loss. Smoke so thick they couldn't see the damage. The clamor of falling debris so loud they couldn't hear the cries for help. All of it made worse when the first of the Twin Towers came tumbling down upon them. After the first series of explosions, there was hardly time to get in, and those that did were right in line of fire for the next series of explosions. As the second tower collapsed, Val Coleman had a front row seat to disaster, watching it all unfold out of his apartment window just 5 blocks away.
And a great blossom of flame, a huge red fireball, scared the hell out of me.
Val Coleman was inside the World Trade Center just 15 minutes before the initial attack and remembers the last person he talked with.
A very nice young man answered me very politely. I left, came back here, and boom, he's probably dead.
And as he sat watching the building burn, Coleman could see tiny black specks near the top floors. They were people jumping off instead of being burned alive.
I must have seen 10 or 15 people come down, one after another.
Off the top?
Off what appeared to be the top.
The bombings today brought one horrific scene after another.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
But rescuers know once they get closer to what's left of the Twin Towers, the images are sure to get worse. But the workers, for many of them, though, they are still waiting. We are told now, Dan, that firefighters are trying to stretch ladders out across some of the debris to begin putting out some of the fires that have been burning all day long. But active search and rescue efforts are still on hold at this hour. There is still hope here tonight. But for the moment, it's being tempered by an overwhelming sense of helplessness. Dan.
Lee Cowan, one of our many reporters covering in Lower Manhattan. The terror attacks on the World Trade Center struck deep into the hearts of New Yorkers. Many were witness to or victims of this cowardly act of mass destruction. CBS's Mika Brzezinski has been out among them on the streets of New York.
There was terror in the streets while the Twin Towers burned. With gridlock on the ground, crowds watched from afar and prayed.
You don't see people jumping from the windows like this.
Police jumped into action, moving the crowds behind police lines, away from danger.
Let's go!
But not far enough. One after another, the towers fell to pieces, debris falling onto hundreds of onlookers. Somewhere behind the billow of smoke, an American icon had disappeared, transforming the New York skyline forever. On the sidelines, people watched and wept. Others, covered in soot and debris,
Come on, can you stop off? Come on.
counted their blessings. Even now, no one can guess the number of dead and wounded. Adding to the confusion, cell service was crippled, cutting the lifeline for families trying to locate loved ones. Only a few could get through.
It's gonna be okay.
Nearby schools evacuated so quickly parents had no idea where to go to find their children. Everywhere there was terror and confusion.
Everybody, please start walking towards the east side.
Finally, people simply walked away from Lower Manhattan. An eerie calm prevailed as police evacuated the area.
As far as the counts, everybody seems to gravitate towards a number to put this in some sort of perspective in your mind as to the gravity of the situation. And Mayor Giuliani said 2,100 people have either been killed or injured. Can't decipher between whether they were killed or injured, but 2,100 is the number he's putting out, as well as an extra 1,500, which he calls walking wounded, which are actually taken across the harbor to be treated. People who are, if you want to give them a name, were collateral damage on the ground near the area where the building collapsed several hours after or at least within 2 hours after the initial plane crash.
Look at the timing of this. Here are two 110-story towers. They house at any given time, probably at the peak of the business day, they house 50,000 people inside. And this is what's happening. This video we showed you just a moment ago is incredible. This is all of that concrete dust and debris coming down. We think this is a doctor who shot this. At one point he asks one of the firemen there if he says, let me have can I have a toot off of that, your breathing apparatus. The air is so thick with dust and dirt, you can't get any oxygen.
Oh, wait, maybe it was this one. There's all these noises. I don't know what it is. They say someone needs help.
Yeah, Mike! Mike! Mike, come over here! Yeah!
Anybody need a doctor?
Where are you?
Oxygen. Don't have oxygen.
Hello, Doc.
Hey, that guy needs some oxygen if someone can share it with him. 10-4. Thanks.
That seemed to confirm there, Mike, that he was a doctor actually looking to help anybody that he could. What is so remarkable when you see that video is how quiet it is.
I was thinking the very same thing. It is eerily quiet, except for that strange sort of, I don't know what that sound was exactly.
I don't either.
It almost sounds a little bit like the traffic.
But for his entire staff and, of course, for the political leadership on both sides on Capitol Hill. Let's go now, Tim. I'm sorry, we'll get to that later. Here now is the President of the United States in the Oval Office. We expect to hear from him momentarily.
Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices, secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shattered steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining. Today, our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of our rescue workers, with the caring for strangers and neighbors who came to give blood and help in any way they could. Immediately following the first attack, I implemented our government's emergency response plans. Our military is powerful, and it's prepared. Our emergency teams are working in New York City and Washington, D.C. to help with local rescue efforts. Our first priority is to get help to those who have been injured and to take every precaution to protect our citizens at home and around the world from further attacks. The functions of our government continue without interruption. Federal agencies in Washington, which had to be evacuated today, are reopening for essential personnel tonight and will be open for business tomorrow. Our financial institutions remain strong, and the American economy will be open for business as well. The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them. I appreciate so very much the members of Congress who have joined me in strongly condemning these attacks. And on behalf of the American people, I thank the many world leaders who have called to offer their condolences and assistance. America and our friends and allies join with all those who want peace and security in the world, and we stand together to win the war against terrorism. Tonight I ask for your prayers for all those who grieve, for the children whose worlds have been shattered, for all whose sense of safety and security has been threatened. And I pray they will be comforted by a power greater than any of us, spoken through the ages in Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace. America has stood down enemies before, and we will do so this time. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world. Thank you. Good night, and God bless America.
We know as a nation, as we said, our thoughts and prayers are with those families and those injured and those who are the casualties of today's attack. We also remember those thousands of people who are rescue workers. We'd ask now that we all bow our heads in a moment of silence and remembrance. Thank you.
So, brief remarks from the political leadership, both Republican and Democrat, on the Hill today, and many members of Congress, both the House and the Senate, including Senator Lott just leaving the camera, then hugging Barbara Mikulski, Democratic.